The following content is a narrated account intended for storytelling and discussion.
Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. 12 years, one dream, a mountain home built by hand, free from rules, neighbors, and noise. But on move-in day, a gate blocks the road, and a smiling woman in a green polo says, "Welcome to the HOA." What follows is a war of forged maps, hidden cameras, and one man's fight for freedom. I'd been dreaming about this moment for years. 12 years of contracts, concrete dust, and government red tape. Hundreds of nights in crummy motels juggling deadlines for the DOT while fantasizing about the smell of pine trees and the silence that comes only when you're miles from your nearest neighbor. Now, finally, I was done. I'd poured every damn cent and drop of sweat into building this house myself. On 6 acres of North Georgia mountain land I bought outright. No mortgage, no covenants, no HOA. Or so I thought. It was Saturday morning. I was behind the wheel of a rented box truck, hauling the first wave of my stuff. Tools, a mattress, generator, some furniture still wrapped in blue moving blankets. I wasn't even planning on staying yet. The keys were due Monday, once the last inspection signed off. I just wanted to get a head start. That's when I saw them. 3 people in matching forest green polos standing dead center at the entrance to my road, the private road that cuts through national forest and leads to my home. One of them had a walkie-talkie, another held a clipboard, and the third, a woman in designer sunglasses and a face like someone just told her the world's run out of sparkling water, stepped forward and gave me the smile of someone who's already decided they own you. "Good morning," she chirped, walking straight toward my window. "I'm Karen Hamilton, president of the Chestnut Ridge Community Homeowners Association." I blinked at her. "Okay." She glanced at her clipboard like it was the 10 Commandments. "Before you proceed to your property, we need you to complete our new owner registration and sign your HOA agreement." "Just a formality, really," I stared. "I'm not in your HOA." "Oh, but that's the thing," she said brightly. "You are now. The board passed a boundary amendment last month. All properties accessible from this road are now within Chestnut Ridge jurisdiction." My eyes followed her gesture. That's when I saw it. An automatic barrier gate. Brand new. Glossy paint, solar panel on top, steel lockbox at the side, installed right across the gravel access road that led to my land. The same road that was clearly labeled as private use in the county plat map I'd studied before I ever made an offer on the land. I stepped out of the truck. "You can't block this road. That's my land back there. I have the deed, the survey, and a notarized affidavit from the previous owner stating the property is outside any HOA." Karen didn't flinch. "This gate is here for security. The amendment includes all lots past mile marker 1. She motioned to a sign someone had zip-tied to a pine tree. "See? This is just administrative. Just sign and we'll issue you your fob." She held out a pen like she was offering me a mint. I didn't take it. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice level, "if you think I'm going to sign away my property rights because someone in a polo shirt tells me I have to, you're out of your mind." The man with the walkie-talkie took a step forward. "If you try to bypass the gate, we'll have to call the sheriff for trespassing." I laughed, out loud. "Trespassing? On my own damn land?" "Sir," Karen said, raising her voice slightly, "we are asking you to follow community protocols. And I'm telling you, I'm not part of your community." I pulled my phone from my pocket and took photos. The gate, the sign, the uniforms, Karen's smug little clipboard. Then I got back in the truck and turned the wheel hard right. There was an old service path about 200 feet back that curved around a narrow creek. The incline was brutal, but the truck was light, and I didn't come this far to be stopped by a gate and a fake queen. The tires spat gravel as I powered through brush, crossed the creek, and came around the back of the house. I jumped out, breathing hard, and started unloading boxes onto the porch. That night, in a sleeping bag on a bare plywood floor, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the cold or the strange animal sounds echoing through the forest, but because of Karen Hamilton's smile. At dawn, I called a real estate attorney out of Atlanta. By Monday morning, I had filed a complaint with the county for unlawful obstruction of access to private land, and we had begun preparations to sue for civil interference. And I had a gut feeling this was only the beginning. Monday came faster than expected. By the time I got to the county office with my attorney, Matt Reyes, we'd already filed an emergency complaint. Matt was sharp, ex-prosecutor, mean as hell in court, and the kind of guy who drank his coffee black and cursed at printers. Exactly who you want when someone's trying to steal your land with a smile and a clipboard. We started with the property records office. I had my deed, survey, plat map, and, most importantly, a signed letter from the previous owner that explicitly stated the land was never and could never be subject to any HOA. The woman behind the desk raised her eyebrows when we explained why we were there. "Chestnut Ridge," she said. "That's about 5 miles south. They shouldn't be anywhere near your parcel." "Yeah," I muttered. "Tell that to their gate." Things got strange quickly. Matt requested a copy of the so-called boundary amendment Karen had cited. The clerk frowned. "That's not public yet," she said. "But I can get you a scanned copy we received from their board attorney." We took it. Scanned PDF. Poor quality. The amendment was dated May 1st, a full 2 months after I'd closed on the property in March. But the document also contained something far worse. A digital signature claiming to be from the previous owner, dated April 29th. Matt swore under his breath. "This is a problem," he said. He called the seller right there from the office. I put him on speaker. The guy was retired military, lived in Alabama now, gruff voice and no patience for nonsense. When we told him what we were looking at, he barked, "Hell no, I didn't sign anything in April." I told the HOA lady when I listed the land I wanted nothing to do with her damn neighborhood. That's why I sold it privately, not through the MLS. Matt glanced at me. "You mind writing that in an affidavit?" "I'll overnight it." We now had a fake signature on a fake amendment dated after the sale of the property. And still, Chestnut Ridge had blocked my road with a gate and wouldn't let me in unless I played along. Matt filed an injunction request with the county superior court that same afternoon. But since it was late in the day, we wouldn't get a hearing until Thursday. That gave us 3 long days of waiting, and Karen knew it. Tuesday morning, I tried to drive up the old creek path again, only to find a pile of cut logs dropped across it. Fresh. Still oozing sap. Someone had deliberately blocked the side access. No note, no signs, just obstruction. I took photos, sent them to Matt. "They're escalating," I said. He agreed. "But they're also getting sloppy." Later that day, I called the county zoning office to ask whether anyone had reviewed or approved the boundary expansion. The guy who answered gave me a long silence and said, That would have gone through our land use coordinator, Mr. Donnelly, but I don't think anything new's been approved recently." We asked to speak with Donnelly. He wasn't available. He wasn't available the next day either, nor the day after. Meanwhile, Matt filed a separate complaint for intentional interference with private property and fraudulent conveyance, citing the fake signature and the illegally recorded amendment. We also included a demand to have the gate removed pending court review. I knew what was happening. Karen wasn't acting alone. She had someone inside the county looking the other way. Because otherwise, how the hell did you install a permanent motorized gate across a recorded forest access road without anyone blinking? That Wednesday night, I slept in the back of my truck parked by the old service path. It was too muddy to make it through in the rain, and I wasn't leaving my home unattended. Not now. I sat with a flashlight, my .357 under the seat, and a thermos of gas station coffee that tasted like warm brake fluid. Around 3 in the morning, I saw headlights at the main road. A black SUV. It pulled up to the gate, paused, then rolled down the window. Karen. She just sat there, engine idling, staring into the woods. I didn't move, didn't blink. Eventually, she drove off. But I knew then, this wasn't about a formality. This wasn't even about an HOA. This was a land grab, and I was the only thing in the way. The courtroom was colder than it had any right to be. Fluorescent lights, faded seal of the state of Georgia on the wall, and folding chairs that creaked if you so much as breathed too hard. I sat next to Matt in my cleanest pair of jeans and a collared shirt I hadn't worn since a cousin's wedding. Karen, of course, looked like she was heading to a country club fundraiser. Cream blazer, pearls, and a thick manila folder that I'd bet good money contained absolutely nothing of legal value. Judge Langford called us up. He was older, sharp-eyed, with a tone that said he didn't tolerate theater or bullshit. My kind of guy. Matt opened strong, laying out everything. My deed, survey, closing date in March, the scanned amendment dated May, the falsified signature from April, and the affidavit from the seller confirming it was a forgery. Then came the real kicker, photos of the gate blocking access to my land and the logs dumped across the alternate route. Your Honor, Matt said, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is a deliberate campaign to obstruct, harass, and ultimately force my client into an organization he has no legal obligation to join. And it began with a forged document. Karen's attorney, some overly tanned guy named Russell Dobbins, stood and launched into a rambling monologue about community integrity, road security, and historic usage of the access corridor by Chestnut Ridge residents. He avoided mentioning the forgery altogether. Langford stopped him cold. Counselor, are you saying the signature on the submitted amendment is valid? Russell hesitated just long enough. I'm saying that's a matter still under review. Wrong answer. The judge ordered the amendment struck from any county consideration pending investigation, and then turned to Karen, who had barely said a word. Ma'am, he said, you and your organization have 15 days to remove the gate. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary injunction effective immediately. Any continued obstruction of Mr. Mullins's access to his property will be considered contempt. Karen blinked at him like he'd just spoken in Aramaic. Do you understand? He repeated. She nodded, but her mouth was pressed into a tight little smile that said she was already planning her next move. Later that afternoon, a sheriff's deputy met me at the gate with a bolt cutter and a signed copy of the order. We didn't say much, just nodded to each other as the deputy cut the lock with 2 loud clangs. I stood there, watching the gate swing open like the damn gates of Mordor, and for the first time in days, I felt the tightness in my chest start to ease. But relief didn't last long. Word got around quick. The HOA sent out a mass email to their members claiming a temporary court interference had endangered the safety of the community. Within 24 hours, someone had posted photos of my house on the Chestnut Ridge Facebook group, claiming I was a hostile individual with a criminal record. I don't have one. A neighbor I hadn't even met yet emailed me, asking if it was true. I had threatened to shoot anyone on the road. It was clear. I hadn't just beaten Karen in court, I had embarrassed her. And that was something she couldn't stand. The next day, I stopped by the local feed store picking up some fencing supplies when an older guy behind me at the register asked, "You the one Chestnut Ridge is raising hell about?" I paused. Probably. Depends on which kind of hell. He gave a half smile. They say you're trying to break up the HOA. That true. Trying to stay the hell out of it, I replied. He nodded. You got more supporters than you think. Folks been scared of that HOA for years. You're just the first one who didn't roll over. Back at the house, I was nailing up temporary no trespassing signs when I saw Karen again, this time standing on the edge of her SUV, just across from where the gate used to be. She didn't speak, just watched me, arms folded, expression unreadable. Then, loud enough for me to hear, "This isn't over. We're redrawing the map." She got back in her car and drove off. I stood there, hammer still in my hand, heart beating faster than I liked. Redrawing the map? Whatever the hell that meant. I had the sinking feeling it wasn't just some HOA pipe dream anymore. I didn't sleep much after Karen's little prophecy about redrawing the map. I'd seen how HOA types worked from a distance, paper cuts in the form of fines, subtle threats dressed as community concern, and the long, slow erosion of property lines. Until you woke up one day with a pink slip telling you your American dream violated font guidelines. But this was something else. The next week, Matt and I dug deeper. He started pulling property transactions for the surrounding lots. I spent 2 days scanning plat maps and zoning filings at the county clerk's office. And, slowly, the picture started to come together. Chestnut Ridge wasn't just annoying, they were strategic. Over the past 9 months, the HOA had purchased 2 key parcels that bordered the only usable access road to my land. Both had previously belonged to elderly couples. The deeds were clean, but the purchase prices were suspiciously low, and the titles transferred through an LLC registered to guess who? Russell Dobbins, Karen's personal legal bulldog. We tracked down one of the previous owners, Mrs. McElroy, 91 years old and sharper than half the lawyers I'd met. She told us her story over sweet tea on her porch. "Oh, I didn't want to sell," she said, "but they said the road was being privatized and I'd lose access anyway. Claimed they'd cut off emergency services if I stayed. Said I could get sued if someone tripped on my gravel drive." She didn't look confused. She looked angry. Said Karen had visited 3 times, each time bringing thicker paperwork and darker threats. "They scared my husband half to death," she added. He's a veteran. Saw combat, but he signed just to shut them up. That was enough for Matt to call in a favor with a friend at the Georgia Department of Consumer Affairs. Meanwhile, I kept digging. And that's when I found it, a posted notice buried in the Community Updates section of Chestnut Ridge's website. It announced a public meeting for amendment vote and map adjustment dated 3 weeks prior to the day they blocked my road. The location, a private clubhouse deep inside Chestnut Ridge, gated and card access only. Attendance list, not published. I went to the HOA office and requested the meeting minutes. The receptionist, a nervous young guy with slicked back hair and the kind of customer service smile that says, "Please don't talk to me," handed over a heavily redacted printout. It claimed a unanimous vote to include access adjacent parcels within Chestnut Ridge jurisdiction, citing community safety, visual standards, and traffic equity. What the hell was traffic equity? Matt was furious. This is a textbook example of fraudulent expansion. They held a fake meeting, passed a fake vote, then tried to backfill their legal obligations after the fact. But I still needed something more. Proof of intent. I got it from a neighbor I didn't know I had. An old-timer named Travis knocked on my door just after sunset, wearing a hat with the logo of a long-defunct lumber company and holding a six-pack of warm beer. "You Mullins?" he asked. "Yeah. I hear you're not bending over for the HOA." That's one way to put it. He sat on the porch like he owned the place and cracked open a can. "I used to do grading work for them," he said. "Back when they started paving through the hill lots, Karen hired me herself. Paid me cash." He handed me a printout from his own records, a contract showing Chestnut Ridge paid Mountain Way Road Services $78,000 for driveway stabilization and boundary management. The kicker, the job location was listed as my road, before they'd even tried to absorb it. And Mountain Way, registered to Russell Dobbins' brother-in-law. "I stopped working with them after they stiffed me on the last job," Travis said, shaking his head. "But I kept the paperwork. Figured someday someone would want to burn the whole damn thing down. We had them. They weren't just overstepping. They were orchestrating a slow-motion hostile takeover using legal ambiguity, vulnerable seniors, and a network of fake LLCs to privatize the road and create artificial jurisdiction so they could turn every property along the corridor into mandatory dues-paying members. I sent everything to Matt. His reply came in all caps. "Do not confront anyone. Meet me tomorrow. We're going federal." I didn't confront anyone, but I did print out every contract, plat map, and transaction I could find, and I made 3 copies. One for Matt, one for myself, and one for the fireproof lockbox I'd just bolted into the concrete slab under my bed, because Karen wasn't just fighting dirty, she was playing long-term. And the longer I looked at what she'd built, the more it looked like a goddamn empire. It started with the lock. I'd just come back from town 2 days after Travis handed me the smoking gun of their fake contracts, and I knew something was off the second I stepped out of the truck. The gate that led to the side path, my gate on my property, had a shiny new keypad lock where my old latch used to be. Brand new. Still smelled like factory grease. And I sure as hell hadn't put it there. At first, I thought maybe someone was messing with me. Some HOA neighborhood watch jackass trying to be cute. But when I walked up to the front door, that's when my blood ran cold. Taped across my front door was a laminated notice in HOA letterhead. Access denied. Occupancy pending compliance with Chestnut Ridge community regulations. For registration and smart access setup, scan QR code below. There was a little smiley face graphic at the bottom. A smiley face, like this was a damn library card sign-up. And there, screwed into the porch post like it belonged, was a sleek little camera blinking a red LED light every few seconds. Logo on the side, HOA Smart Access, mounted cleanly, professionally, not by me. My hands were shaking. I backed up, took pictures, then video. I circled the cabin, checked the rear entry, same thing. A second lock. 2 more small black boxes under the eaves. One was a motion sensor, the other had a mic. I got back in the truck and dialed Matt. He answered mid-sentence. "If they went physical, we have grounds for felony charges." "They went physical," I said. "It's bad." He was silent for a second. "Call the sheriff." "Right now. I'll meet you there." It took 20 minutes for a deputy to arrive. His name was Banks, a younger guy, maybe late 20s, who took one look at the laminated sign and said, "They did what?" I walked him through the whole scene. He filmed everything himself, took notes, and muttered something about this being above his pay grade. But then came the good part. I'd had a suspicion, something I'd learned the hard way while building on remote sites with government contracts. So I reached up under the porch awning, unscrewed the power panel that connected to the new camera system, and sure enough, tucked inside was a micro SD card. "Mind if I pull this?" I asked Banks. He shrugged. "It's your house." Be my guest. We brought it inside, slid it into my laptop, and opened the files. There it was. Footage. 2 men in green HOA shirts, plain as day, walking up to my porch at 2:30 in the morning, headlamps on. One of them pulled a ring of keys from his jacket, a master key, and unlocked the side gate. The other carried a drill, wires, a black case. They laughed while working. One of them looked into the camera lens at the end and flipped it off before walking away. I paused it, zoomed in, and took screenshots. The one with the drill. I recognized him. He was at the gate that first day. The guy with the walkie-talkie. Matt arrived just as we were exporting the footage. He took one look and said, "We're pressing criminal charges. Burglary, trespassing, unauthorized surveillance, misuse of electronic systems. Hell, maybe wiretapping." Banks agreed. "They used a key too," he said. "Where would they even get that?" Good question. We found out the next day. Turns out, one of the subcontractors I'd used during framing had reported a theft weeks ago. A set of master keys to temporary locks, the kind contractors use before permanent fixtures go in. He hadn't told me because he assumed it was some dumb kid lifting tools off a truck. But after I sent him the footage, he confirmed it. The guy on camera had shown up at one of his job sites last year, pitching security packages for new construction. They'd stolen the keys months ago, meaning this wasn't some knee-jerk move. This had been planned. The sheriff's office launched a formal investigation. The cameras were removed, cataloged, and taken in as evidence. I filed a criminal complaint the next morning, citing unlawful entry, attempted control of private property, and installation of surveillance equipment without consent. Matt sent cease and desist letters to HOA leadership, to Dobbins, and, just for fun, to the LLCS we now knew were fake shells. Karen, of course, said nothing publicly. But someone posted in the Chestnut Ridge Facebook group that certain individuals had proven themselves hostile to peaceful community surveillance. Surveillance. Like it was normal to put facial recognition cameras on someone else's porch. I had to install my own security system that week. Top line, motion tracking, perimeter alerts. But nothing felt secure. Not because I was scared, because now I understood what I was dealing with. This wasn't petty harassment. This was strategic occupation, and if they were willing to break into my house to make a point, I could only imagine what came next. The lawsuit was over 90 pages long. Matt called it a tactical nuke in PDF format. I called it overdue. We filed it that Monday in the Superior Court of Union County. Civil suit against the Chestnut Ridge HOA, Karen Hamilton personally, Russell Dobbins, and 2 shell companies, Mountain Way Road Services and Secure View Incorporated. Charges included interference with private property, civil trespass, unlawful surveillance, document fraud, and racketeering under Georgia RICO statutes. That last one was Matt's favorite. "Most HOAs are petty little kingdoms," he said as we watched the clerk stamp the complaint. "Yours is a cartel with landscaping." We didn't have to wait long for a response. By Wednesday, the Georgia Department of Consumer Affairs had assigned an investigator. Thursday morning, a surprise audit hit the Chestnut Ridge HOA office. Karen wasn't there. She was on vacation. Dobbins was caught flat-footed trying to stonewall 2 state agents. Didn't work. I knew things were getting real when I saw a county SUV parked outside my property later that week. Not a deputy, not a code inspector, state enforcement. They wanted to see the physical locations mentioned in our complaint. Where the fake cameras were mounted, where the new locks were installed, the stretch of road Karen claimed to own. I showed them everything. I had printouts, screenshots, timestamps, even video from my own newly installed perimeter system. One of the agents, a woman named Hines, whistled when she saw the footage of the night install crew using the master key. "We've seen HOAS go rogue," she said, "but this is coordinated." Then came the bank records. Travis, bless his bitter old soul, had friends. One of them worked at a credit union that held accounts for several local businesses, including, conveniently, Mountain Way Road Services. Turns out, the company had exactly 1 transaction per month for the past year. A deposit from Chestnut Ridge HOA, immediately followed by a transfer to another account under Jacob Dobbins, Russell's cousin. We traced Secure View Incorporated the same way. It led to a P.O. box in Augusta and a defunct pressure washing service. Matt added it all to the amended filing. The RICO charge was now front and center. Karen finally broke her silence. She issued a statement through a new attorney. Russell had quietly stepped back from representing her directly, though he still sat on the board. It was classic HOA gaslighting. The Chestnut Ridge community has always acted in the best interest of its residents. Any suggestion of misconduct is politically motivated and being driven by a non-member attempting to disrupt community cohesion. She even tried to suggest I was the aggressor. Funny thing about that, the statement dropped the same day I got a call from a local news station. A reporter had gotten wind of the case and wanted to interview me about the dispute with the Chestnut Ridge HOA. I said no, at first. But Matt called me that night. They're losing control, he said. Now's the time to turn up the heat. So I agreed to speak. We met at the local trailhead, with the mountain view behind me and a table full of documents in front. I told the story. Not just the gate, or the forgery, or the locks. The whole thing. The quiet war against property rights disguised as neighborly concern. The segment aired that weekend. Karen's face wasn't shown, but her name was. The term fraudulent HOA expansion was used 3 times. A former HOA member came forward anonymously to confirm they were targeting lots for absorption, especially ones with absentee or elderly owners. That broke the dam. By Monday, 3 more property owners, including sweet old Mrs. McElroy, filed independent suits against Chestnut Ridge. A 4th neighbor handed over recordings of a board meeting where Karen referred to me as the problem that needs to be pushed out. The County Planning Board quietly removed the HOA's expansion filing from their docket. The zoning office, which had gone silent for weeks, suddenly issued a statement saying no legal boundary adjustments had been recognized or authorized, and then came the cherry on top. A whistleblower from inside the county, an assistant to the land use coordinator, leaked a memo showing Karen had made campaign donations to the current zoning chief's re-election PAC through Mountain Way's corporate address. That memo went straight to the state attorney general's office. We'd gone from a locked gate to a multi-agency investigation. And as far as I was concerned, the real demolition was just beginning. The courthouse felt different this time. Bigger, louder, tense, like something historical was about to go down and everyone wanted a front row seat. There were cameras now, local news vans parked crooked along the street, reporters with microphones standing outside like vultures circling a wounded animal. Inside, the gallery was full. Property owners, ex-HOA members, angry retirees, curious locals, even a few suits from Atlanta who looked like they smelled litigation fees in the air. On my side sat Matt, calm and lethal in a gray suit. On theirs, Karen, stone-faced, jaw clenched, flanked by a new legal team that looked less like attorneys and more like damage control consultants. Opening statements were brutal. Matt laid out the timeline like it was an execution: forged amendment, illegal gate, fraudulent surveillance, financial laundering through shell companies, attempted privatization of a public access road, and, finally, active conspiracy to coerce and absorb non-HOA properties. Their side tried to claim misunderstandings, administrative delays, informal procedures. The judge didn't buy a second of it. Then came the witnesses. First up was Travis, who took the stand like a man attending his own retirement party. He laid it all out. How Karen paid in cash, how the companies were fake, how she referred to people like me as unsustainable holdouts, and bragged about cleaning up the map. Then came Mrs. McElroy, walking slowly with a cane, but her voice cut through the courtroom like a scalpel. She described the intimidation, the threats, the night they brought a notary to her house at 9 o'clock to sign urgently needed road agreements. She never signed. Her husband did, while shaking. The courtroom was silent when she said, "They used fear." That's not community. That's extortion. Then the footage. The prosecutor played the clip from my porch camera. 2 men in HOA shirts, one using the master key, the other installing surveillance. Karen's attorney tried to object, but the judge waved him down. The jury watched every frame. When the guy on camera flipped off the lens, someone in the back muttered, "Classy." Then came the bank records, clean trails from HOA dues to the shell companies, straight into personal accounts tied to the Dobbins family. The transfers were routine, monthly, and indisputable. The numbers didn't lie. Then Matt dropped the bomb. He introduced the whistleblower memo, the campaign contributions from Mountain Way's address to the zoning commissioner's PAC. He walked the jury through how the expansion filings coincided precisely with those payments. And just like that, the county was on trial too. Karen took the stand on day 9. Her expression never wavered, but you could see the corners of her mask slipping every time Matt asked about a signature she couldn't prove, or a contract she couldn't explain, or a vote that had no record. By the end of the second hour, she cracked, raised her voice, accused Matt of conducting a witch hunt, and called me a provocateur exploiting local systems for personal gain. The judge asked her to clarify. She refused. The jury took notes. Final statements were short. Matt reminded the court that this wasn't just about me, or Mrs. McElroy, or a few locked gates. This was about an organized abuse of power carried out under the banner of community, backed by money, fear, and arrogance. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours. Verdict: guilty. Karen Hamilton found liable for fraud, conspiracy, unlawful surveillance, civil racketeering, and property interference. Sentenced to 9 years in state prison, plus a lifetime ban from any HOA-related leadership under a new clause the judge ordered entered into the state HOA registry. The Chestnut Ridge HOA was ordered to dissolve within 60 days, return all improperly collected dues with interest, and pay $410,000 in fines and damages, half of which would be distributed to plaintiffs, the rest going to a new state HOA oversight committee. Russell Dobbins lost his license. The zoning commissioner resigned. The day after the verdict, I went back to the gate. It was still standing, still bolted into the earth like it had any right to be there. But now it was powerless. I stood there for a long moment. Then I grabbed my wrench, loosened the hinges, and pulled the whole damn thing out. I flipped it upside down and left it lying across the road like a warning. Some folks build fences to keep others out. Some folks build them to claim what isn't theirs. But this one was staying on the ground. It's been 6 months since the trial. The mountain air feels cleaner now. Not because anything changed in the wind, but because I can finally breathe without wondering who's watching me, who's filing fake paperwork, or who's trying to redraw the world around me without my consent. The old HOA sign at the road, gone. One morning I found it lying face down in a ditch. Someone had taken a hammer to it. I left it there, let the weeds have it. The county sent me a formal letter 2 weeks ago. The road I use, officially confirmed as a perpetual public easement, recorded in '72 for forestry access. Can't be revoked, can't be bought, can't be claimed by any HOA fantasy maps again. I framed the document and hung it in the foyer, right under the mounted level I used to square the first wall of the house. I get visitors now, not the bad kind, the good kind. Neighbors who used to avoid eye contact now stop by with pie, fresh eggs, firewood. Even Travis helped me grade the lower slope last month, refused to take a dime, said I earned more than money. Mrs. McElroy calls sometimes. Her husband passed in April peacefully, she says. She's staying put. After what you did, she told me, no one's ever going to knock on my door with lies again. Matt's moved on to new cases, but we still talk. He's working on a proposal to establish a statewide HOA abuse reporting unit modeled after our fight. Says it might actually pass. Says people are ready now. And the HOA registry. Karen's name sits at the top of a new internal alert list. She's prohibited from holding board positions, registering associations, or serving in any capacity involving community property management in the state of Georgia. The judge wanted it in writing forever. I still have that gate. Didn't throw it out. Didn't recycle it. It lies flipped and rusting at the foot of my driveway, next to a new sign I made out of salvaged oak. Painted by hand, black on silver. Private property. Not part of any HOA. Trespassers will meet lawyers. And underneath that, in a smaller carved plaque, you don't belong here. You leave here. People laugh when they read it. But I don't say it for laughs. I say it because it's mine. My house, my land, my rules. And if someone wants to take that away again, they better bring more than a clipboard and a bad signature.
This story does not intend to judge any individuals involved.